CareerSparx students, today we're here with John Brueggeman. John is the Professional Services Manager for 3M, and he's also a Senator from District 6 in Montana. Hello, John. Thanks for joining us.
Good to hear from you. Glad to be part of this project.
Thank you. We're glad that you are too. So tell me a little bit about how you got your start in politics, because I understand that's the first thing you did, kind of straight out the chute.
Yeah, I was still in college when I ran for office, and I was 21 at the time, and there was an open district. And Montana's a small rural state, so there's lots of opportunity in states like that if you want to get involved in politics. I always thought that I'd wait till, maybe had a career and a family and all those things, and then it just happened that there was an open seat, so I decided to go for it. And so it was kind of networking 101 in a weird sort of way, because I knew a lot of folks around town, but you have to reintroduce yourself to these folks in different contexts, so I had to get to know everybody again, because I didn't know what I was doing. I guess you knock on doors, you put up signs, and talk to folks and see what happens. And so it's kind of networking boot camp, having the courage to go up and knock on doors. And it takes a while to build that up, but once you start doing that, and then there's things like cold calling for campaign dollars, and that's a real trip. But for some of the folks in the sales, for some of the students out there that are going to be looking at sales careers, that's part of sometimes cold calling, and some of those careers can be part of that. But it's just one of those kind of random things, life can take you on different adventures. So as I tell folks, this whole world revolves around who you know. Everyone wants to kind of nobody wants to really put it in that context. They want to say, anyone can do anything they want, which is true, but you have to know people to get there. So it's all in who you know. And it sounds a little cynical, but that's not really cynical. That's just the way networking and business works. So the point isn't that you don't know anyone, because a lot of students don't have a big Rolodex. The point is, go meet people. And that's what I did. I just went and met people. And you save those contacts, you develop those contacts. And I certainly haven't done as good a job of it over the years as I could have to maximize all that opportunity, but you kind of go for it. So anyway, I got elected, and that was 10 years ago. And I was elected to the House and then the Senate. And it's a small district, so you kind of know everybody. And I went into that because I was interested in politics, but I didn't realize it also helps you develop a Rolodex with all sorts of companies and different folks, and it's a huge opportunity to network. Now, that being said, there's lots of different ways to network and get into businesses, and we can talk about that too.
Absolutely. So how did you use the skills that you learned in politics to translate over when you were networking with businesses?
Yeah, it's one of those things you always want to present yourself in. Some of the basic rules, I guess I should start off with, that I took to the legislature. I was 21, so clearly I knew that I didn't have a grasp on all the issues.
Right.
The first thing is understand what you don't know, or try to understand what you don't know. And in some ways, people just say fake it till you make it. I don't really like that expression, but the bottom line is, be humble about the fact that you're not an expert on everything when you're young and getting into the job market. But your chief commodity are communication skills, your personality, and your work ethic, number one, I guess, should be number one. But your willingness just to get out there and meet people and engage. And by doing that, I always spent money on clothes. I bought good suits that fit well. So I dressed sharp, I looked sharp, I acted sharp in every context I could, so that people take it seriously. And at 23, I was elected majority whip, or assistant majority leader in the Montana House, which I may still be the youngest person to serve in leadership in Montana history. And so that's just one of those things that is kind of a path for young people. You got to make sure that you present yourself in a professional manner, so that people look to you and say, hey, there's somebody who's got their stuff together and they want to go places, and opportunities will come from that.
What's one of the best networking tips you've ever received from somebody?
It's tough to say. I don't know if there's best networking tips. I would say it's make a catalog of everyone you meet. I think that through my experience, and I still don't follow my own rules as well as I should, but in a lot of these contexts, you meet all kinds of people in your everyday life. and always make a note of that contact. Send them an email, follow-up. Nice to meet you. Add them to your Rolodex, because you never know when that contact will become useful for you, or you can be of help to them. That expands your network. It's all about, think about your network and your bandwidth for networking, and try to maximize every opportunity. I record now, I've gotten better about it, record every business card I have. I put it into my contacts. I use Gmail, like a lot of people do, but I use that sort of as my background server to manage all my contacts, even though I use Outlook. And so there are new programs for like the iPhone 4 or Android phone. I use Android-based devices because I'm a big fan. But you can actually capture and optically recognize cards, and it will automatically put it in your contacts without having to do all the typing. So that really speeds up your process of saving contacts. And the best practice is, every time you get a contact, fire them an email, say, hey, it was great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Make sure they have your info and you have theirs, because you never know when it'll come in handy.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to ask you right now, as someone who does a lot of networking yourself, I'm sure you've had others approach you. Has there been a time where someone has approached you in the wrong way?
It's tough to say. I'll say there was an interesting example recently. My boss was in town, and we were having a meeting with a customer, and we got a random, somebody ordered us a drink from the bar. We didn't know who it was, so we randomly get this round of drinks, and we figured it was a friend, or it must be somebody sitting at the bar. Looked around, had no idea who this person was, and still, we were finishing up our meeting and leaving, and still didn't have any idea. And so finally, we figured out, our customer sends me an email the next day, because he employs a lot of people. And apparently it had come from somebody who had recently lost their job, knew that this guy was a big employer, and she caught him on the way out the door and handed him a resume and said, hey, I just got laid off. I'm looking for a job. And we all kind of had a laugh, but she gets an A for innovation and guts.
And what was his reaction to this?
He kind of said, well, I'll keep my ear to the ground if I hear anything. And so, I haven't heard anything that I forwarded along to her, but it's one of those things, if I hear something that seems to fit her skill set, I'll pass it along to her. So from, I guess you could say, mission accomplished. It's unconventional, but she gets an A for effort.
Absolutely. So I guess kind of on the flip side of that, what is, like, if someone comes up to you and they approach you and they want to network with you, what makes them stand out to the point where you actually want to take the time to help them?
I think it all comes down to, I think that everyone's most valuable asset is likability. Mm-hmm. I always say that likability, and there's a lot of things that roll up into likability, but people that you like when you meet them. And it all comes down to personality. You have to be professional, friendly, courteous, and knowledgeable. And that all rolls up into this kind of characteristic, I guess we call likability, or somebody that when you meet them, the lights are on, they're hard workers, and you like them immediately. And that's a big, not everybody has that, but it's something that everybody needs to develop. Make sure you communicate clearly. Make sure that people like and respect you, and that you're memorable. And people remember you for being kind of a standout in a good way. I remember Dad always said, when I was young, he said every kid's trying to be different. They're wearing baggy pants, or they're wearing something that doesn't that kind of looks funny. I say, of course, I'm 31. And I always think it's like the punks who wear flat-billed hats. I know that's your demographic. Sorry, Brie. But I look at these folks, and I look at them, and I go, they would never fit into any of the organizations that I've worked with, because, you can look that way outside of work hours, but you have to think about your perception in everybody you meet. And so Dad always said, be different in a good way. Stand out by being professional, by being clean-cut. Of course, now I am, because I don't have an option with my hair, but I have no choice but to be clean cut. But and that you'll set yourself apart, and I think that's true. And be interested in what you're doing.